What's up people, my name is Daniel Holt, and in today's video we are going to create this animation that you see on the screen. It's like an intro animation and we're going to learn about how to use GSAP like a pro. We're going to create timelines and it's going to be a really cool one. So I hope you enjoy it and let's get into it. Okay, so let's start diving into the design of this project and what the initial idea was. So what we have here is just a simple starting screen or a loading screen. So we have this black overlay with the text in the middle. And the idea is to introduce the user to the brand. And then as we animate this overlay up, that's when everything else or the UI animation starts. So this like black box or whatever you call it feels like it's drawing the text up. So you see here as the black background is like going over the text, that's when it like starts to drag up the text. So everything feels very fluent and it's like one seamless animation. And I think that's important to keep in mind when you're doing animations, to think about doing everything in harmony or whatever you would call it. Like everything needs to have its place in the animation. So you could do this in many ways. Like you could move this just like up. Whoops. You could move this black box just up and then do everything after. But if you start thinking about, okay, how can I connect one thing to the other? That's when you start to have animations that seem very pro and very like well thought out. So yeah, we reveal the UI and we also going to do, if you see here, the image is going to be full screen and then we're going to animate it down to like this boxy feel. And also when the black box is going over the header items, that's when they start to like fade up as well. So a couple things here is like everything is moving up in this animation. So this text comes from the bottom and goes up. And it also goes up when this box is going up. The text here is coming from the bottom and going up. The same with this and this. And also the header items is going up. So yeah, try to think of everything like playing together. So all the elements have to like blend in a way when you're doing animations. Like, I'm not saying you always have to do everything in the same direction, but it just depends on what elements you're animating. But I would say it's a good practice to think about where things are going, because if you're animating an element from the bottom going up and something is going in the opposite direction, it can, like if you think about nature and stuff, kind of going off topic, things like that doesn't happen. So what's natural for us and our eyes and our brains is that things happen in a logical way. So yeah, keep that in mind. Okay, so that is the main idea for this project. And I have already got the main styling and everything set up. So we just have the blank screen. So if I go to, let me find a preloader here. If I just turn off this opacity, this is what we have. So we have the preloader or the overlay, and then we have the main design. So I'm not going to go over the styling, but it's very simple. And I'm also going to go over styling if it's needed for the animation, because this is just very simple CSS. You can also find this in the repo, so if you want to code along, you can do that. But yeah, let's start diving into the fun stuff. So in the starter project, you're going to have what you see on the screen. So you're going to have, it's a Vite project, so you can download it and you can do npm install and npm run dev, or whatever you choose, if it's yarn or npm. And we have just the index file, which is also just very simple, just the markup. And we have the GSAP dev tools, which I'm going to go over as well. We have the app.js and yeah, just a very small HTML file. In the package.json, we have GSAP as the dependency. So when you do npm install, that will install GSAP. So if we go into app.js, we're going to start setting up this animation. And the first thing we need to do is just import GSAP. So we're going to import GSAP from GSAP. And we're also going to use the flip plugin for one of the animations with the image. So you can do import flip from GSAP/flip. If you ever wonder what to type or like how to include stuff from GSAP, you can go on to their docs. So you can do GSAP docs, and they have, let me see. I think it's installation. Yeah, so you can just like click on what you want to include in your project. So here you see the flip plugin. And also we have to do this. We need to register each plugin that you include. So what we want to do is we want to register flip and also the GS dev tools, which is included in the index HTML file. This is one like trial. It only works on localhost. So yeah, it's like a demo version. Okay, so now we have everything we need as far as the setup. So let's just start doing the preloader animation first. So we just need a couple of different elements to animate. So we're going to need the background, which is the black background here. So I'm going to say preloader background and document query selector and preloader background. And we also need the text. So preloader text equals query selector preloader text. And that's what we need as far as the preloader. So let's just go into the markup and see exactly how it's laid out. So if we go into index.html, we have the preloader div here. So it's just this little thing here. And the only thing it's not special, but to get this like masking effect, you just need to wrap the text in P first and then a span. So like the P here will like have overflow hidden, and we can move this span up and down like this to show or hide the text. So if we go into the styling for this, we can see here that the text has overflow hidden, a line height of 1 to like cap the height. And then the span inside has display block. So by default, span elements are inline, so you can't do movement on them or like position them. So you need to make it a block element. And then, so if we see here, we have this span. And if we do transform, translate Y. And if we do it in percentage, so if we do 10%, it's going to be here. If we do 100, it's going to hide the whole thing. So what we want to do is just, hide it like this and then reveal it as the animation happens. So we have this now, and what we're going to do for setting up the animation with GSAP is whenever you do these kind of transforms, you have to tell GSAP, you have to tell GSAP where is this element positioned, because transforms are different in Safari and Chrome and Firefox and everything. So you can either do it in CSS and JavaScript, or you can do it in JavaScript or a mix of both. But what we're going to do for the whole animation is we're going to create a function called setInitialStates. And this is essentially just going to like set up everything that we want. So by default, we might want to hide some stuff and then animate it in again with GSAP. So we're going to like set everything to what we want to be the initial state in here. So I'm going to do a gsap.set, and we're going to do this for the preloader text. And what we're going to do is we're going to say y% and set that to 100. So this means just the same as we did here, setting this to negative 100%. Okay, so we have this function now, but we're not going to just like run it under here like that. We want to make this into a very structured project. So what we're going to do is we're going to create something that's called a master timeline in GSAP, or it's just a term that you can use. So if we do const master equals gsap.timeline, what we can do now with this master timeline is we can add either other timelines to it or functions. So you can do master, and just for a bit more structure, I'm going to do this on another line. I'm going to do add, and then we're going to put this setInitialStates in here and run it. So what we're doing now is we're creating a GSAP timeline, and we're placing this function inside here. So now we're starting to create a timeline where we're adding stuff to the timeline, and we can add more items as we go along. So this will be very useful in a little bit. So I'm going to explain as we code along. So let's see here. I just need to, so just one little thing, you need to add the span here for this to work. So not just the text, but the span inside. So if we see now, the text is invisible because it's hidden. So yeah, let's start doing the preloader animation. So I'm going to create another function under here. So the way we're going to do this whole timeline, and you're going to see this workflow is going to be really useful later on, is we're going to create functions for each like part of the animation. So we're breaking it up into different parts. So we're going to say const preloader animation with a function. And inside here, we're actually going to create a timeline. So we're going to say const tl is gsap.timeline. So now inside this function, we're creating a timeline. And what we need to do is return the timeline from the function. And then we're going to add stuff to this timeline. So from the preloader animation function, we are getting back the timeline in here. So we can do tl.to. We can say preloader text. And we want to position this back to y% of 0. And we're going to do a small delay so it doesn't happen straight away. So let's see how this looks. And now the same thing as before, we're going to add this to the master timeline. So yeah, I really like this. It makes working with timelines so nice. So now we see this small animation here with the text, which is really nice. One thing we're actually going to do is we don't have any easing here, but we're going to set up more two animations in this timeline. So I want to do some defaults for this particular timeline. So in GSAP, you can say defaults, and this is for individual timelines. You could also do it on the master timeline, and you can also do it, I think you can do gsap.defaults, just like this will be globally for this file. So yeah, there's a couple different ways you can do it. But the only thing I want to set by default is an ease. So I'm going to do powered2.out. So now this is the same as like having this in here, but now you don't have to specify this for each animation that we have in here. So I'm going to add another one to this, and it's the preloader text again. So now we moved it up, but if you see in the Figma file, we want to move it up to here, but then we also want to move it up again to hide it. So we're going to do y% of -100, or actually 105, because sometimes these y's or g's and stuff like that, if you have a g, you can see sometimes the like bottom edge is going like below the line. So just to have a little bit of extra space to move it up, I'm just doing 105%. And I'm going to do a delay on this. So we want to show the text first, have a small delay, and then move it up. So let's see if that works. Yeah. So it comes in, small delay, and then goes up. Okay, cool. And then what we need to do is animate the background. So we're going to do a .to for the preloader background. And this is very simple. It's just going to be y% of -100. So just move the whole background 100% by its own height. We're going to have a different duration for this of 1.5 seconds. And I actually want to have a different ease for this one. So I'm going to do power4.in_out. So different easings will have different feels or whatever you call it. So yeah, let's see how this looks. Cool. So you could also tweak this in here. So we could say, have this happen at the same time as this is happening. Yeah, but for now, we're just going to keep it like this. Okay, cool. So already we have, like, I think this by itself looks really cool. Like, I just love simple, minimal animations. And I feel like this is a good example. If you just have a clean layout and minimal design, you can do so much to make it look very elegant and nice. But okay, let's continue to the other stuff. So we need a couple different query selectors. So I'm just gonna query selector everything that we need for the rest of the animation. So the first thing is hero titles, which is gonna be query selector all. And then hero title, and then span. So let's check out what that is referring to. So yeah, you see on the design here that a new way to write in style. This is manually set by me in the markup to be 2 different lines. So the same idea as the preloader text, we have a span and then we have an inner span. So this will have overflow hidden, and we can move this up or down to hide or reveal the text. Okay, so hero titles, we also need something called hero image start, which I'm going to explain in a little bit. So that will be hero image starts, and then hero caption. We see hero caption span. So whenever you see those spans in the query select, that's usually for, yeah, same as here, like showing and hiding stuff. So it's just nested items. And then also hero button and query selector hero button. And then hero image wrapper, which is hero image. And then the actual image. So document.query selector, hero image, and then the image tag inside. So a little bit confusing, but we'll get to that in a little bit. And the last one is header items. And that's going to be a query selector all. And that's dot header and then just a star sign. Okay, so a little bit to query select, but if you're doing this for your own project, you would have different files. Maybe you would, yeah, you could structure this however you want. But for this video, I'm just gonna do everything in one file, and it's not too much for now. So let's continue. Okay, so like I said, we need a couple different initial states because now everything is just visible and it's not where it's supposed to come from, if that makes sense. So I'm gonna hide the preloader for now, just so we can always see this view. And in the set initial styles, I am going to add a couple different extra things. So I'm going to do GSAP.set, and we're going to target the header items, and we're going to position those in the Y direction, 24 pixels down, and auto alpha of 0. Auto alpha in GSAP is the same as saying visibility hidden and opacity 0. So it's like a shorthand or short, yeah, shorter version. Okay, so with that, you see the header items are hidden, the top ones. And then we also need to do the hero button. So sometimes these things are things you have to like really try and see how it feels. Do you need to place them further down or further up, or like, yeah, you always have to look at your animation as a whole and see how it feels. So for the hero button, I want the Y to be 64. So it's going to be further down than, for example, the header items, which is totally fine. So, okay, now we have just the last ones here. So what we're going to do with these is just going to hide it with the Y, the translate Y. We're going to do the same thing. So this, and instead of creating a new one, we can actually add an array in GSAP here. So if I add like the square brackets around the selectors, we can just add hero titles and hero caption in here. So now we have everything kind of set to the initial state that we want it to be. Cool. So now we have the preloader animation and everything. So the last thing we're going to do to like set this up before we start animating things back in is the image. So like I said, here you can see that the image by default is going to be positioned like this, I think. And it's going to be like full screen and going to this final state. So how do we do this? Because you can't really get this layout, or it's very tricky at least, to get this layout without like nesting a bunch of divs and doing absolute position or some sort of trick. But with the flip plugin from GSAP, you can move items in the DOM. So the actual elements will be positioned. Let's see here. If I find the image here. So by default, the image is inside this hero image, which is like the final layout. So this. And we're going to move it so we're going to move this image up to a div that's right next to the body. And by doing that, so if we see hero image start, you can see that I just have some styling to position it absolute and be full width, so full screen. And the cool thing is, if we just start setting this up first, we can see how it works. Animation. So I'm going to do a TL in here, so a timeline. So return timeline here as well. And I'm going to do a default in here. So defaults, you're going to set the default ease to power 3 dot in out. We're going to have a default duration of 2 seconds. So that's going to apply to everything in here. So the way flip works is you have a state, either a from state or a to state. So if I just explain this using these two, for example. So if I just have the image by itself. Okay, let's say that's full screen. And this is what we wanted to go to. So we can say in GSAP, like this is the state that we're capturing, and this is the state that we have by default. So figure out what you need to do to kind of move this image to this position. So what we're going to do is we're going to say const state equals flip, which is the plugin. So you're kind of flipping between states. And we're going to say get state of hero image wrapper. So this is the current state. So before we have done anything, get the current state. So this is kind of like what we want to go to. And then we're going to say hero image start, which is the empty div that we just positioned absolutely with the full width and height. So now we're going to take this image and like move it into this other div. And we're going to do this with append child. And then hero image wrapper. So basically, we're just getting the state before we're changing the DOM. And now we have the option later to go back to this state that we saved in this variable. So if we just add this to the master timeline, you will see what is happening. So if I remove this or comment this out, you see that the image is in the final position, but we're just moving it into the other state, which is really cool. So if we do timeline dot from, and we can do hero image, and let's do a scale from 1.5. So we're going to have a small scale. Let's see if I just got this right. Yeah. And then we're going to do a 2 for the hero image wrapper. So one thing we're doing here as well is like when it's full screen, we don't want these borders, this border radius, but we do want them on the final final design or final state. So we're going to do border radius, and we're going to do 16 pixels. So let me just see if that is working. Okay, cool. Yeah, I know what this. So the reason it's not doing anything straight away is because we're doing the preloader animation, but we just need to comment this out. It's doing the preloader animation, but we set this to opacity 0. So if we just check now, let me see here. Yeah. Okay, so we're scaling the image and doing a small border radius. And the scaling of the image is inside the wrapper. So just a small detail when it comes to creating really nice looking like scaling animations when you're doing this is the wrapper for the hero image has overflow hidden, and the image inside is what we're scaling. So if we did scale of 1.5, for example, here, you see it's within the container. So you're not scaling the whole thing or like the actual container, just the image inside. And when you're doing a scale, when you're also doing like a zooming effect that we're going to do, where we're like taking this image from this big version to like a smaller version, if you're also like zooming the image out a little bit while you're doing it, you're creating even more depth. So I can show without this after. Okay, so now to the cool thing. We're gonna place the image back into the container. So to do this, I haven't figured out how to add a flip animation directly to a timeline with a 2. So we're going to do the add, which is just adding like a function. So inside here, we're just going to do an arrow function. So just open that up. And inside here, we're going to do flip.to. And then we're going to go to this state that we kind of recorded up here before we did any change. So we're going to go to that state and we're going to have a duration of 2. This is because this is not within the actual timeline. It's like inside a function. It doesn't inherit this duration here. So we're going to set this to duration 2 and ease of power 3 dot in out. So if we check now, yeah, you see as the final step, the image goes into this new container, which is so cool because actually the image is still here, but we recorded or saved the layout of this container. So GSAP just knows which values to go to, and it's really good. So yeah, just a really good way to create these like complex animations where you're actually changing the DOM and stuff. But okay, let's continue. Now everything is just happening once or one after the other. So this is happening 2 seconds, this is happening for 2 seconds, and then this is happening for 2 seconds. But we want these to overlap. So the last parameter here is just, with this you're saying play this one at the same time as the last one. So I'm gonna do this for this one as well. So now you're seeing all of them at the same time. So now you're actually seeing this zooming of the image as the container is changing. So actually, if I do this with like a larger value, you're seeing it even more drastically. So you see it's changing the position, but also the scale of the image inside the container, which is really cool. So just a small detail like this is making your animations look even more professional. Okay, cool. And then we pretty much have the like most of the animation. So we have the preloader. And then this is happening. Now we just need to reveal all the UI elements. So all the text and the header items here and the button. So let's do that. So I'm going to say const UI animation. And here I'm going to create a timeline like all the other ones. So the reason we're creating timeline is because you can control everything later here if you're doing it. So you're going to see the benefit in a little bit, which is one of the best things of this video. And I'm also going to have some defaults here. I'm going to create a delay for the whole timeline. I'm going to have defaults with an ease of power 3 dot out. Oops. I'm going to have duration of 1.7. So these are just values that I entered or messed around with. So I'm going to set the y% to 0 and also y. Sometimes I get some issues with the transform, so setting both the y and y% to 0 is kind of like forcing it to go to the value of 0. Okay, so we're going to do a TL.2. We're going to do the hero caption. We're going to say, we're actually going to change the duration of this a little bit. So it's going to be a little bit quicker. The bigger the item, so this is a bigger item than this. This needs a longer time visually to look like it's taking the same time as this in a way. So these are also like the small details that you can do. If you just had everything set to, I don't know, 2 seconds, this is traveling a much shorter distance than this. So if you want them to like end in a natural way, you have to tweak the small items a little bit differently, or the big ones. And I'm also going to have a different easing on this one. So power3.inouts. And this is again just stuff that I played around with. So let's see. Oh, we need to add this as well to the master timeline. And I'm just going to turn off this and the preloader here. Yeah. So let's just continue to add the different things here. So all of these twos are inheriting all these. So I don't need to specify a lot of things here. So here I can actually just do a stagger of 0.2. And that's just like the first line will happen, then 0.2 seconds after, the second one will start animating. So it's just a little shift in time. And then the hero button is going to go to auto alpha of 1. So it's going to be visible. And the last one is header items. It's also going to do auto alpha of 1. And if we see this now, cool. So now everything is animating, but of course it's very slow and things are not happening at the correct time and everything. So this is where animations can really shine. If you get the timings right, it's going to look, yeah, so much nicer. So I already tried all of these values. So this is not just something that I intuitively have in my mind. Sometimes I can visualize what I want the animation to like look and feel like, and kind of understand a range where I want the numbers to be. But here we're gonna just do this manually. So I want the hero titles to happen 0.9 seconds before this is ending, or just overlapping by 0.9 seconds. And I want the hero button to happen at 0.5 seconds, and the header items to happen at 0.5. So this can actually be like that. So let's see now. So now, like, that is such a huge transformation in my view. Like, just tweaking the timing just makes it look good. And yeah. that's the thing. Like when you're working with animations, sometimes you think like it doesn't look good, but then you're just tweaking some small stuff, and then all of a sudden everything is working great. Okay, so the final step now is how do we make everything like seamless and happen together? Because now we've broken things into these chunks of like animation, like the set initial states, then the preloader animation, then hero image, and then the UI. But what if we want these like the same as we do here when we're overlapping stuff? What if we want these to overlap each other, for example? And that's the cool thing you can do when you're creating these functions with timelines and animations. Is we can, let me just see here, just close this down. With the master timeline, when we're returning the timeline for each of these, the last parameter here is actually the position parameter. So for example, for the hero image animation, I want this to happen maybe 1.5 seconds before this is finished. So now if we see here, you see that the image is starting to do this animation before the preloader is finished. So it's like overlapping a little bit to make it seem like it's one animation. Even though these are two completely different ones, we're just overlapping this so it seems like the animator like thought about the whole thing. And we can do the same thing with the UI animation. So we want the UI elements to happen at the same time as the image is like scaling, just like here. So the image is starting to move, and that's the same time we want the text and header animation to move. So let's see now. So now everything seems just very seamless. The preloader or the overlay thing feels like it's connected to the hero animation. So it's very smart to do GSAP animations in functions instead of just doing a big timeline. You could do this if you wanted to. You could do TL.2 and just like have all of this that's in here in just one huge timeline. But then you don't really, it's very hard to tweak, it's very hard to maintain. If you want to add stuff, it's really hard. And also with the master, you can have these chunks. And one last thing that I want to show that can really help you to debug your animations and really take it to the next level is including this GSAP DevTools. So you just do gsdevtools.create. And like I said, this is in the index.html, and this is only working on localhost. So what this will do is now we just have the master timeline here. So this will like add this timeline to the DevTools. But now you see we have this like UI that we can just like scrub through our animations, and you can really be precise when you're having these things. So like you see here, I could maybe start this this animation here a little bit sooner. Like if you see the text across here, like I would want that to start exactly when this is like overlapping. It's happening a little bit slow now, but like these are the things that you could try out. So you could scrub like this, or you could actually play your animation at a really slow speed. So let's see. So you could really dive in your animation dial in your animation and make it very, very specific in terms of timing and look and feel and everything. But yeah, that's how you would code something like this. And I know I've been very bad at uploading YouTube videos. I swear I'm trying to make the time. I've just had a rough couple of months, to be honest, and a lot has been going on. So I will definitely try to upload more, and I really want to get this going. So I appreciate all your feedback, all your comments and everything. It really helps me be motivated. And I hope you enjoyed this video and got something from it. And until next time, have a great time or a great day, and see you in the next one. Peace.